I know that no one really watches these intros, so let's just say welcome to Inside the Edit on Trailer Talks. And today we are excited to have CJ Meston with us. He's an award-winning trailer editor with over 15 years of experience. In this episode, CJ shares some insight on how to be breaking into trailer editing and the whole industry. And he also talks about how to be balancing creativity with the technical demand on the sound design, and how to effectively craft trailers that resonates with an audience. So if you're an aspiring editor or a music creator, you could probably find some value in this little interview. And maybe, be bringing something to elevate your business and your own work. So enjoy. Thank you so much for joining our little show here Inside the Edit. We are super excited to have you here today. I'm sitting in Denmark and it's morning right now, so I look tired. And you're in the evening drinking wine, so I think everything is good. Everything is good. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you guys doing?
We are great. Obviously, it's early, but we're good to go.
Getting the day going.
So now I want to have you to do a little bit of talking. I would love to hear, because I know that everyone who's in this industry has, entered so many different ways.
Totally.
So I'm really curious just to hear what's your background and maybe you could take us through a little hero story, like how you ended up where you're at.
For sure. Well, again, I really appreciate you guys having me on. This means a lot. I know you guys are getting up really bright and early, and to have me on at the end of the day. So it means a lot to be able to talk about something that, I love and I'm passionate about, and also something that I just feel incredibly grateful to even be a part of. The industry, especially now, is in such a place that it's hard. It's hard to get in. I've had a lot of kids reach out to me recently on LinkedIn, just say, I'm new and I'm getting ready to graduate college. And it's a tough time, because I know guys that have been doing this for years. I mean, beyond me, that are looking for work right now. So it's to have a chance to sit down and talk about it means a lot for me and for my end. So, but a little bit about me, I took a weird route. And like you said, everyone's got their own story. My story, I'm a little mountain kid from Colorado, and I was always creative. It started with photography. I fell in love with just the frame, and I learned that capturing an image was my chance to kind of tell a story. And so learning from early on that's how I wanted to tell a story, and then I needed to graduate further down the line. So I started in commercials and making commercials in Colorado, and I reached a point where I realized I really wanted to push this. I needed to live out here. So I packed up and moved to LA with $1,000 and a bunch of, at that point it was DVDs. So I had my work samples on DVDs, and I didn't have anybody. So I wasn't a film student. I was a journalism student. And I literally backdoored my way into this. And I would not suggest doing that at all. It's a very tough route to take, but it was the route I had in front of me. And so I got out here, and I was working a few jobs on the side, and I literally was dropping DVDs off at different studios, receptionists, hoping it would get in the hands of somebody. And somehow I got a night, freelance gig in finishing, helping, cut on some random show that was about to be canceled, and the rest kind of was history, and it kind of trickled from there. So.
And what was your position, in the beginning? What were you doing there before you moved to LA? I was an
assistant. Oh, in Colorado, I was an editor. So I was, editing. I mean, it was back then they called it a predator. So I would produce, shoot, and edit all my own stuff. And so I kind of worked, in the skate and snowboard world. And then I worked for a company called TV8, and they were in Vail, Colorado. And it was a small mountain town. And I just got to cut cool commercials. And back then it was, they just wanted stuff to put on air. So anybody that was local, whether it was North Face, Smart Wool, any ski shop, any restaurant, they needed a 30-second promo spot. And so they came to our TV studio and we buy one from you guys. And then they had me. And I completely lied and said I knew what I was doing. And I figured I can get through this. So
we all do at some point, right?
Exactly. Make it till you make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was 17 years ago. Moved out, and it was, I had to work my way up the ranks. I thought because I had experience as an editor, I was just going to come in and be an editor. And it's not how it works in the film industry at all. I had no on-set experience. I didn't even really know what it meant to be an AE. And so one of the best things that happened for me was I had to go be an AE and kind of wait, prolong becoming an editor. And I got to learn the process, because in my world, trailers, TV promos, there is a process, and getting from A to B, there's a lot of hands that go in the pie. There's a lot of MPAA regulations. You can't just have stuff floating around, and learning, what an editor needs. What is a daily? I didn't even know what dailies were. I didn't know what a true set experience took to get from there to our desk, and then to get that into that, air to, advertise and market these campaigns. So, it was for me, it was a great learning experience to kind of come up the ranks and, that rite of passage and learn to do it the right way. And, I got the experience to sit behind a lot of really, pro editors and kind of see how they did things and how, you can kind of cherry pick what you think works for you. Because at the end of the day, if you're creative, you're kind of born with that, it's something that's in there and we can all just do that part of the job. But then it's like, how do you do it right? How do you polish it? What is your process to get from, something to a place where it works and it markets? And so you kind of have to learn that, not only being creative, but also doing it in a way that sells a product, if that's what you want to do, and there's a whole different path for filmmakers and people that work in commercial world, and so for the trailer world, I really had to learn what that process looked like and how to do it correctly. So
yeah. you sat behind a lot of the skilled editors and
for sure.
How did you move them aside at some point? I guess, like, what was the
you kind of wait for overflow at some point, depending on where you are. Be good at whatever job's in front of you, and for me, that was one thing. Like, I was always going to outwork whoever's in the room. That's my thing. And I've actually made some friends that they had kind of had the same thing. And you'd see us both there at 3 a.m. You're still doing, annoying work just to get through, just to have that chance to work under that producer. But be the person that's going to work the hardest. And it sucks because a lot of times people do take advantage of that, and they take advantage of, cheap labor. But in our industry, if it allowed me to be in the space where I could be around the right person, if I could, because I knew I could cut what these people are doing. I just need to do it the same way they're doing it. But I had the creativity. We all do. So put yourself in a position that producer is going to go, okay, we have, some overflow. Hey, what are you doing? You look like you're available. I am available, right? And it's just kind of one of those things where people want to work with you. The producer wants to work with you. The team wants to. So give them, the type of person that they're like, oh, I want this person in the room with me. I trust them. And once you build that trust, then the rest starts coming. Then they start throwing scripts away or a spot here and there. And once you've proven that you can do something that's going to bring money into the company, there's, no reason to not graduate up. But you kind of earn your stripes through that.
Were you like a freelancer, or how does it work in that end of the, or do you hire?
It's kind of tough. Usually it's an AE. You're going to want to find a full-time position.
Yeah.
There are some freelance AEs, but I think, again, our industry is evolving and changing right now, and it's been doing so for a while with COVID and everything, and now remote work and hybrid work. And if you're kind of dialed in, it's nice to have the hybrid. It's nice to have remote. But if you're young and new and wanting to kind of earn trust and learn, it's terrible. It's the worst thing for you because you need to be exposed to everybody that's around you that's creative. You need to be exposed to the right producers, but then you also need to be exposed to sitting in an edit bay and talking to a cool editor that's willing to kind of give you some tips, or like cut some things on spec and be like, hey, I know we're working on this. I thought I'd want you to look at it real quick. And so that part of the industry has kind of changed in the sense of as an assistant, as a lower tier trying to work up. It's hard. But when I was doing it, I was full-time. And it took a few tries. There was one company I was at, and I tried transferring my skills of being a producer, shooter, editor to LA because, they did a lot of stuff called EPKs. It's electronic press kits. And it's kind of stuff that, you go on set and you do behind the scenes footage, behind the scenes interviews with cast or directors. Then you come back, cut something together, and they use that for, if they go on Jay Leno or a Tonight Show or news anchors or anything. they had these kits together. So they sent me on set because I could do a little bit of everything. But the problem was when that workflow was over, I came back, they'd replaced me as an assistant editor, and all of a sudden there was no job. And so I was like, oh shit. So now what? And so I got let go. And so I had to work my way back up the ranks again in a different company. And so, I think setting your eyes on a path is incredibly important, knowing where you want to go. And not to say that you can't pivot and things can change, because they can, but it's important to kind of set your eyes on a goal. I knew kids that knew exactly what they wanted. A guy that I was an AE with made it to being an editor years before I did, because he stayed with that same company. He just did the job, kept his head down, graduated up, and life was good. He didn't have to bounce around. So
I think that's a symptom of, sorry for interrupting, but that's like a symptom of so many creative, because we sit in positions where we're like, hey, so if you're a music producer and you suddenly guest ask if you could do like an audiobook or whatever comes in, whatever can pay, what the fuck is like in your way, and you just jump on that, and you jump on that, and then slowly, as I feel like we're kind of the same age that we get older, we know the power of niching down, and be the name of whatever task is needed, and being very specific and very good also at that.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you're
totally
pivoting around here. Yeah.
Yep.
So
yep. No, for sure.
We all know
for
that.
Sure.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you hit it right on the head. That's exactly it.
Okay. So just to a big catch up, or a short catch up. So you moved to the city where everything happened or happens still, and you just kept behind the good ones and slowly got opportunities, and you just kept your head in it and worked your way through it, and
totally.
some sort of persistence. I feel like that's a really big word here.
Yep.
And
no, it is.
And actually, I should have congratulated you, because I saw you just got a new position.
I did. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just saw that. So I guess maybe we could end there and then jump into all the creative stuff. So what's that about?
The new position?
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's a senior editor role with a new agency. They're not new. They're a massive agency, but they're based in London, and they're expanding to LA. And their creative director, I happen to have worked with and won a Clio for a Quiet Place spot when he was on the studio side, and he was with Paramount. And, we just stayed in contact. We actually oddly worked together without truly knowing each other for years. And so he was one of those things that I think is important to not burn bridges, and this is exactly that opportunity that came rearing back. And this is on the tail end of a pretty rough 4 years for me. So I was one of the unlucky few that COVID, I fell into a category that I was furloughed. I just happened to be a name in the hat, and there was only so many names that got saved and certain ones that didn't. And because I had to bounce around a lot, bounce from shop to shop, was trapped in freelance, didn't want to be, but just had to make myself available. The work kind of slowed down. And then we've had the strikes, and the strikes were another major hit, and the same kind of thing. I'm sure you felt it. It just wipes you out, and you just go, all the work. It's hard to explain if you've never experienced it, but as we have to just see your entire world basically just melt away, and then go, there just really isn't any work. And you go, that can happen? That's a thing? And it wasn't. And unfortunately, I was in a freelance role when the strikes happened. So then you have another year of, freelancing, doing I cut the most random shit that I cut the most Hallmark trailers to independent trailers to some cool things. Other things, it was I would cut, just some for the day. I added subtitles to, Spanish spots. I was literally just grasping. But I think it was you were saying, how persistent are you, and how bad do you want to do this? And for me, I there is no plan B. This is what I know, and this is what I'm good at. And I know that I'm good enough at it that I deserve a right to be at the table. I don't need to be, master, but let me at least be at this table. I've earned that right. And so, I was persistent, and this came around, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, your world can flip, and I was the person scouring LinkedIn, just going, come on, give me a shot again. Well, how am I out on the outside? And then it flips, and all of a sudden now, you're the guy that people go, hey, if you guys are hiring, kind of thing. And I'm like, oh man, I know that feeling so well. Like, trust me, I would. Like, as soon as I have something, I will. So, that's another thing is our industry your world can change quick if you put yourself in a position for it to. And it's hard, like I was lucky. I had a wife that is so supportive. She had a job to help get us over the humps because financially it's a hard world to hit lows. And when you hit those lows with kids, with mortgages, with life, can you afford to get through it? It's interesting, but that's long breathy way of saying yes. I do have the new position. Incredibly grateful and excited to be with a company that's, doing new things and doing things the right way. It was a new chapter, and I'm really excited to kind of see where it goes.
Nice. So, okay, let's move into a bit more before the creative. So, when you do work, do you get into a suite and sit and edit, or do you have your own setup, or how does that work?
Both.
Both. Yeah. Okay.
It kind of depends on where you are. When I was freelancing, most of that was just at home. And so I built my own kind of at-home office, but that's where I'm at now. Me and my wife just bought a new home though, so it's super empty in here. It's literally over on the other side is my stand-up desk and a computer. I don't have anything on the walls or anything, but we were at an old house. We had our desks right next to each other, next to our guest bed, piled on top of each other. So you kind of make do with what you can and where you are. And if you're lucky to have a room to call an office, and you do that. But the one thing that I've learned is get the job. Don't ever not deliver. Like whatever, if you're working off a laptop, if you're working off of the beautiful Edit Bay suite, just deliver the work and, deal with, you don't need all the bells and whistles. If you have them, that's awesome. It's great. Makes it a lot easier, but just always deliver depending on, no matter what you have. And that's going to keep the work coming. So, but yeah, for me, each shop's different right now. This new shop, we're hybrid. So we have a new office in Sherman Oaks that we're actually building out, and I'll have, a proper edit bay in there. And then I also have, my at-home kind of edit bay that I've built out as well.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't turn my sunshine away.
My creative process as an editor, you're usually working with an agency, and that agency is going to have a producer or creative director that has a relationship with the studio. Studio is where all this comes from. They're the gatekeepers. They control the work. We know their slate of projects, the films that are coming out. We know they're going to do a trailer. How many are they going to do? And again, this is an evolving part of the industry. A lot. Sometimes those, a campaign will get 3-4 trailers if it's a big enough movie. Sometimes if it's a Netflix thing, it'll get 1. And the thing that's getting hurt the most is the TV campaigns, because are we getting eyes on it, right? Who's got cable, who doesn't? So they're not making nearly as many TV spots as they used to. And then what's kind of bleeding in and becoming a competitor is the digital campaign, because everyone's on their phones, everyone's getting clicks. So how many eyes can you get through social and digital spots? For example, A Quiet Place. I've been working on that campaign for a while, trying to get it finished. I probably cut 3 or 4 TV spots for it. Could not get it finished. Nothing was they kind of were at the back end. So you have different phases of a campaign. You have your phase 1, you're just starting out, story spots, introductory spots. Phase 2, people know who's in it. They want to see the cast, stars, big names. Phase 3, you're starting to kind of get in theaters now, coming soon, those kind of stuff. And so you start doing, review spots. And we're at the back end of this campaign. And it was an international spot. And they're like, I don't know, man, we're out of ideas. If you guys got anything cool, just throw us an idea at us. And that's how this spot came about. So that's how sometimes your best spots do, is that, you get the chance to be creative and step outside the box. Is it normally the case? Normally there's structures.
So, okay, so we are in post-production on the feature film. I guess it's done at this point, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Usually at this point, sometimes it depends. If you start cutting on a campaign early, if you're on a trailer, you're probably going to start getting dailies in, right? So you might be cutting from dailies and building out. What'll happen is you'll have AEs will build like a assembly of the feature before you get a full proper one. That way editors can kind of watch that and break down. They know what the scenes are going to look like. You got the script. And so you go, okay, this is what this movie's going to look like. These are some rough dailies. And so you can start building, what a trailer's going to look like. And then once they have a full done feature, you'll start getting different versions of it. But once they have their first feature, they send it to you. And then so you start cutting from that. So that's when you're going to start getting more color done. You're just going to get sound design in there and music. But a lot of times your dailies obviously are coming plain. So it's tough to cut with because there's no score.
Stuff. Yeah.
Oh, brutal. It's brutal. Like it's just on set. You're hearing director say action, scene plays out. And then like if it's any type of, VFX heavy, it's just green screen and people with bubbles all over them. And like, it's a hard, you have to really think outside the box. Or if it's animation, let's storyboard. So you're not even, they'll literally send you storyboard playing out and tell you to cut from it. And you're like, what?
And I guess you can use footage that won't be in the feature at the end, right?
You can. So that's another thing is, and a lot of times that happens. So like if you get a feature 2 and say by, feature 4, there's something that has been cut out, right? Because it goes through so many hands, the producers, studio hands. But a lot of times if they just like something, they like a line, they like a moment, highlight something. A lot of times that'll make the trailer and won't make the feature. And so, that's always an interesting time.
I had this, but I guess that's in the perfect world, like when you sit in your couch and you just watch the movie from start to end, and then you probably maybe have the script on the side and you have a pretty good feel of what's this about. But what you explained here is way more rough. You actually, I guess that's because they want to shorten the time from when the last edit is done on the feature and before they release it. So to make that the shortest, because all that back and forth would be much easier if you just got handed over, right? But totally. I guess they want to shorten the time, so they want to get it out to the world to make money, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. It takes a long time to get a trailer locked. So the earlier that you're getting a story built and cut, the sooner that then, because what you're going to do is once you have your stuff in, you're just going to overcut it with the new feature. So like you're going to have all your rough stuff in there, then you're going to come in, have an AE overcut the whole trailer with the new feature that is kind of polished, and it'll just kind of have that. Like AEs, you'll overcut trailers countless times because as those come, as you get finished VFX, as you get whatever, the editor needs to come in the next day and have that sequence overcut with, clean shots and stuff. And so that's a process that'll happen a lot over and over and over. So yeah, you're, as an editor, yes, you're told I'm going to work on something. You sit on your couch and you watch it. If you're lucky, you get a finished feature, but you might be cutting or watching a very rough cut of that. And so I always try, if there's time, I do just a raw watch. I sit down and literally just watch it as a viewer. And then I go back and I rewatch it and I break it down. And your breakdown for me, that's one of the most important parts of my process is the breakdown. It's where I find what is my through line going to be? What are my points going to be? What are the lines? I'd have to know this movie inside and out. And, I need to know that the lines I'm pulling, on average, a trailer is going to have how many big, strong lines that matter. The rest is just fluff, right? And so those storylines, my trailer lines are the most important things I can find and add, right? And then you come through and you find your stylized shots, you find your look backs, you find, your scope and all those things. So I'm very detailed. I need to have all of that broken down on a timeline so that I can go and access it all. But my breakdown is where I'm going to build any story, trailer, TV spot, promo. I'm going to dig into that. So I basically will pull all my storylines and literally mean just lines of dialogue clean. And then I go back through and I watch just that by itself clean. And then I pull from their lines that I'm going to go, okay, ooh, that's a nice intro. Okay, that could be a cold open. Okay, this could be, a nice, little bit of story, a talk back, blah, 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 blah. So I slowly build out my 3 acts from those lines. And then I just highlight things that like, okay, I'm going to need to go back. That might be a little stronger line. And I don't even really worry about coverage until way later. Those lines are what is the most important part, and once I can fill like 2 to 2.5 minutes or a 30-second. It depends on what you're cutting from those lines. Is my story there? Okay. Now let's start working on coverage. Now let's work on talkbacks, stop downs, moments that, make us go, oh, wait, what? Like, those kind of moments. So,
yeah. And it seems like, I'm sorry. Yeah. But it seems that with A Quiet Place too, that what, at least from my approach and when I saw it, it's like that the clever thing that you did was to simplify it, at least on the sound design, and just because, and it totally makes sense even with the title, right? That you use silence as a pretty big, what did you call that? Like it was something that
source
drew the attention, really. Yeah. But the way that you did it, and sometimes simple is better, like less is better, like, and it seems like that was the clever thing that you did on that one. But
totally, yeah. It's great when you get a campaign like that. And some campaigns are hard, like romantic comedies are tough for me because you just gotta, like it's comedy. It's so subjective to, who's there. And something I'm going to think is funny. A lot of people are going to not laugh at or just be like, wait, I don't get it. Like, and so like,
and that's a cultural
cutting
thing
something for that is tough, right?
Yeah.
Whereas something like A Quiet Place is like, it's just cool. It's meant to be edgy. So you are asked to make something so outside the box and different, which for me is like, oh, I love that kind of an opportunity. It allows you to really kind of just do something different. That the whole reason you ever got into something like this,
So take me through so now you got a rough cuts going and you're slowly starting to get the right footage and you're replacing that part and he's doing that and you're slowly coming to something where you say, okay, I'm pretty proud of this one. I'm pretty happy with this one. Then you forward it to who, and what's the who's approving it in the end? Is it like through an audience? Do you do like A/B testing, or is that back in the days, or is it just a few guys saying, this is good, we believe in this, or
right? Yeah. Each one's kind of different. It depends on the size of the campaign, size of the movie. A lot of times, most trailers they still do. They call it testing, and so they'll a lot of times they'll have 4 different shops all cutting trailers. They'll go test those trailers, see how the trailer tests. But again, that costs money, so it has to be a larger campaign. You'll even see that for TV spots. A lot of times they'll be like, all right, this spot's going to go test this weekend, and they test it, and you kind of come back and go, all right, this test is good, this test is bad, and they're getting a feel. And I have like interesting relationship with testing because I feel like it's, again, so subjective. They're picking some random group of people. Is this the group of people? Like, I understand this is the group of people you're trying to get in the door, but is the group of people that would actually see this movie, And at the end of the day, what we're doing is trying to make money, and it's a business. And so that's a hard part, of separating yourself from the creative, and it's a business, And so I think as an editor, as a creative, you have to have thick skin and go, all right, I got to make sure that what I'm creating is hitting those marks again. Because you always want to do something so outside the box. And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, try it. And you try it, but then it's not going to finish. So you have to walk this thin line of like, all right, how creative can I be? But I also need this to hit the masses, and not just that one very genre of people that absolutely love filmmaking and will get this joke. Like, it needs to be everyone. My mom needs to get the joke. The guy that goes to film school needs to get the joke. Like, how do I get all those people involved? So, you're going to cut something when it's at a place when it's polished and you're feeling good. You're working with a team, right? So as an editor, you're always going to have a producer, executive producer, or a creative director that you're working with. And again, they're going to kind of be the voice between you and the client. And so you drop it, they check it, you kind of go back and forth on your notes, and then that's going to go to the client, and the client's going to, do the same exact thing. Each campaign is a little different, but right around there is where you're going to go, okay, this needs to get out. We can't keep messing with it. Let's lock it. Then it locks and it goes to finishing. So, and that's always a great day.
It sounds
great
like
feeling.
10 different ways, and sometimes you don't know why it even got out, but someone just said, fucking run it, and other times it's based on actual data and insights. Okay.
It's kind of sometimes the best time, like when to hop into a campaign at the back end, because at the beginning, they're going to frame fuck the shit out of it. Like, you're literally going to be like, you're just going to get notes. It's going to be somebody who's like, doesn't like someone, like, my kid went to school with her. And you're just like, what does that have to do with this note? Like, what are you talking about? And they'll just mess with it. But when you get to the back of a campaign, they're running out of money. They can't do as many versions, and they're like, fuck it, just finish it.
Put it out. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. That's a good place to be.
You spoke about like creativity and business, and in that situation where you're kind of competing with other editors, what is are you just that's your like investment, or do you have like upfront payment when you just do these competitive editing, or is that just the business?
It depends. For me, it's the business. So I work full time. If I'm working full time, then it's just your job, and so you have a salary.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, when you're hired, that makes sense. But
when you're hired
also
full
then
time,
just for the studio or the agency, then they're like pitching and hoping for the best. It's kind of
Yeah, and then I mean, each agency also has their kind of like payment breakdown of how much because they're obviously making money, right? And they don't always let us know what that's going to look like, But say, they have this is what it's going to be hourly to have our team on the job. That team includes assistant editors, lead editor, producer, creative director, and we'll, do it up to this many versions. Past this many versions, there's going to be additional cost involved. Again, as an editor, that's not stuff you really have to deal with too often.
I know that, but I was just curious, because I guess if you're a freelancer, then you're just, investing into whatever and hoping for the best, like that things get placed and okay. But when
But I think there's one thing that's really important for editors is finishes are important because that, those finishes open doors. When people look at my website, they need to see those finishes. So a lot of times the agency is going to make money off of versions. So the more versions you have or any versions, you cut 5 versions and it just gets killed and they move on. Those 5 versions, they're still billing for. And so, you get a paycheck, they get a paycheck, you move on. But at the end of the day, you also don't have anything to show for your work. You could, you can't say like, I got paid for it, but they're like, okay, cool. What'd you work on? Like, finishes are really important. And anyone that tells you they aren't, I think wasn't an editor because it's something that every job I get, what do they say? Let me see your work.
1551. Japan is in chaos. Anarchy reigns as heavily armed warlords fight for power and territory.
In the Sengoku period, there were no more rules. This was all-out battle for control of Japan. You have the men who are going to shape the destiny of Japan coming together. Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Masamune, and Tokugawa Ieyasu.
Samurai combat is more brutal than anyone can imagine. These assassins, spies, and agents were not to be trifled with.
These are the greatest warriors history's ever known.
The wheels were now set in motion for the most decisive struggle for power in the whole of Japanese history. The real battle for Japan was about to begin.
I have to have finishes to show you my work.
I have 10 half-finished stuff. Maybe.
Yeah. So getting those finishes is important.
Yeah, got it. All right. So I want to talk a bit about the auditive approach, and that's actually some of the things that I'm most curious about. I guess A Quiet Place 2, maybe since it doesn't have like a specific track and that it's made purely on sound design. Maybe we could talk a bit about Age of Samurai, which was a documentary that you did for Netflix, but a kind of a documentary that is, how do you say that, like with probably a bigger budget than what you normally see, because they have all these action scenes, which are obviously made of actors because it's reference to the old story about the samurais. But the way that you did that, I feel like that there's a specific track that you've been using some seconds into it. I think it's like 20 or 30 seconds. There's this track that actually runs. Could you talk a bit about that? Like, how does that come to life? Do you fall in love with something that is just in sync for when you get the, not in sync, but like in that way, but in like something that's top of your mind, and you just pull it in? Or how does that work?
So that specific spot, what was interesting about that is most of the time when you're working with an agency, you have a music supervisor, you have a music team, right? And their job is, you're getting a genre in of this kind of, music that you're going to expect to be pulled. And so they'll go in, they'll pull stuff and start sending you a bunch of stuff. And they'll pull you sound design that's, specific for that. With Netflix, outside of their big tentpole campaigns, they expect editors to just find that on their own. And so I was, that was during COVID. The company I was with for 5 years, I got furloughed, so I got on with Netflix. And it was something I had to learn with Netflix is I not only had to be an editor, I had to produce my own spots, but I had to find all of my own music, everything. And so they had, I think it was Extreme, Alibi. They probably had 5 or 6, umbrellas that they were under. But they were really like, what's you would watch the show or film and go, what does this feel like? You go find music. And so with something like that one, that was an interesting campaign because like you said, it's a documentary and it's a very boring documentary. It is like not at all what you think it's going to be. But my job was, it was shot so well that they're like, we want this to feel like a feature, even though it's a documentary. And I was like, all right, let's try and get this. And so I went in looking for big, scopy sized, time-based, cues that kind of matched the era, but also felt trailer, and felt, like they could give it some size. And with that one, it was interesting. I fell in love with a cue, and you're like hoping it's going to work. But in my head, when I'm listening to cues, I'm trying to think of it all the way through, and I think I switched. I think I had 2 different main cues in there and then a little bit of sound design. And so what's nice about that is the action scenes, everything, they allow you to switch cues because they're so big that you can do these really cool sound design driven stop downs and moments that could, allow narration to talk and carry you in to the next cue. And so for that one specifically, it was very different than, other campaigns where you're kind of, you have a team helping you find the music. Say you're in that world where you're having a team help you find the music, you are going to get things approved. So you might send folders of cues that you like, cues that you're thinking could work to, the studio, saying, okay, for this trailer, for this team, this is what we're thinking. And a lot of times they'll be like, well, cut it in, we need to see it. So you'll spend a lot of time cutting these cues going back and forth.
I'm sorry, CJ, when you call it cues, it's like small snippets of audio that could be with or without
the music
harmonized, or it could just be sound design, or it could be like a rush, or it could be like a build up, or it could be 30 seconds, or it could be 1 second stuff. So it's basically just one pile of. And how does that work? Just curious on like, so if you have like say a string build up that is like 10 seconds, but it's in a harmonic that doesn't work with the rest. Like, is that? I guess that's some of the struggles that you sit with to have to combine
it
stuff.
Is a lot of times the way these music libraries work. Once you find a cue, you can play, the full mix. And if you like a cue, they break it completely down. So you can go in and download, pull in either the full mix, or you can break down every bit of it. You can pull in drums, you can pull in the strings, you can pull in vocals, whatever part of that stem that you need. And so sometimes they make a nice, pretty 30 seconds. Sometimes they'll make a full 2 minute, and sometimes you might listen to something and be like, I hate this, but I love the intro. And I love, the violin intro. And so you'll pull just that. And so, or a lot of times, every now and then you get lucky and you find a full mix, but I think it's rare. Like the more you start working with stems and kind of pulling things out, I don't need the vocals here, or I only need this vocal, but I just need to repeat it. I don't need it, I don't need the chorus. Little things like that, those are little elements and moments that can really kind of elevate an edit and help, kind of pull your audience's attention in a certain way. And so you can't be afraid. It's important to know that the breakdown of the cue or music is just as important as the edit, because what you're hearing is as much of a driving force as what you're seeing. And a lot of times I love sitting in the dark even and letting whatever the sound is lead us into, catapult us into the next chapter, the next moment. So I think for me, music and sound design is just as important as what you're visually seeing, if not more important. Because it's like watching a horror movie, and if you ever mute a horror movie, it's not scary. It's really cheesy. You're just watching weird people and weird makeup. But the second you add that sound design, and most of the time, what's the scariest part is the buildup, right? You're not even seeing anything, just the clicks and the rise and the tempo and the beats that get you before there's a jump scare, or emotion. Creating emotion. It is so powerful when you add the right music, the right soft tones, the right cymbals, the right swells. Like those things really transfer over it between you and the viewer. So, I think I got away from what we were talking about, but yeah, I mean, you go in and finding these cues, everything is
yeah. So it seems like also like everything else that. Sometimes there's a rule of thumb, and sometimes it's not. So in your position, and when you work in like bigger projects, there's a music department as well who finds the right stuff. And I guess there's also a lot of like how do you say that, like law work to make sure that all the tracks are clear and in one stop and all that. Yep. And then on the other end, you've been sitting in a project where they just expected you to pull something out of it, especially in like series stuff. Sounds like with Netflix and
Yep.
Okay, so we spoke a bit about like if you're an editor of the rising and you're in the starting point, but maybe we could do that the same also if you're like a music creator, because it seems like you mentioned libraries. Is that like, how would you penetrate that market if you are sitting with really good tracks?
Music.
Or if you,
it's interesting. This is something that I wish I knew how to navigate better, because I get reached out to, and I think a lot of editors do, random libraries that will send me emails all the time, or they'll send me, new list or new tracks that they just put a ton of work in, that they're like, we'd love for you to listen to this. But the problem is anything I'm working on at this level is under an umbrella, and they tell me, this is who we're going to license under, period, right? Like there's not a ton of me coming to the studio and saying, hey, I love this, like, unless it's something very unique or organic, or, there's a remix of this certain cue and someone did it, and it's like, okay, but most of the time it's a named artist that's doing that remix.
Yeah, you couldn't even put it in if you even wanted to, because people are just, I mean, you
I would
could
have to
if you really wanted
fight
to,
for
but
it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
I think that path, which I don't know how they do it, would be, getting in with filmmakers or the studio. I've had a path where I've told other guys that I could really tried to help them with, and I was like, I'd get into it with some of those like kind of younger, newer filmmakers and see if you could help them with their score, and or getting your music in on whatever project they happen to be working on. And then that gives you a path in, right? And it gets you in the room. And then once you're in the room, I mean, all these big name, Alibi, Extreme, whatever, all of them, they somehow got in with the studios and became their go-tos. But how'd they do that, right? And I mean, those are big powerhouse, big size libraries. But, what gets them in the room? What gets you in? Because if anything, you're probably going to give a better price than some of these other. Like, how much is Surge down like to use every time? It's crazy, like some of these big name just swishes and hits, and there's everyone's making their own version of it. So how do you get that in and being the one that they're willing to license? So as an editor, I don't know. It's a path I'm normally usually told this is the library, work from this.
Yeah, got it. Have you ever had like custom stuff being done on the side? Do you ever have could maybe explain a bit
I
about
have.
that?
So one of the only places I've actually had that was this place, Seismic, and their music supervisor. He also made his own sound design, so that could be an in. But what he would do is, he a lot of times would customize if we needed specific, tracks, or we needed specific sound effects as well. He would kind of customize those, and it was pretty cool. And then, they had the in at that point, because the agency to be like, hey, we got this cheaper library, but we really like this, cue. Or what he would do is, if we really liked a full song, he'd come in and customize it for the cut too. So, being able to have access to that is huge, because it really polishes the song. You can give your 30-second or trailer and have someone come in and create a custom cue. that just takes it to a whole new level. Whole new level. So, no.
Yeah, I just saw some of I just came to think while you mentioned that the Hans Zimmer on Dune 2.
Yeah,
all the sound work that he did as along in a YouTube around, where he just, the way he works with different musicians and stuff, it's just, I guess that's sound design in the movie, but it just brings so much quality and so much leverage to the whole production.
It does.
So,
it does.
Anyways, we are talking way over time, but I feel like that you have so much knowledge, but I would like to slowly wrap it up. I'm curious, just a really short thing, like, what are you picking on trends currently? Do you have any insights or anything where you see, like, I see a lot of it going this way or that way? What is your thinking around that?
It's hard right now. I feel like the trends I'm seeing aren't great trends. I think the reason is
aren't great trends. Did you say
aren't great trends? Yeah. And I think the reason I say that, don't get me wrong, there is a ton, but we're in such a weird place where they don't really know how to market things right now. We don't know how to market for digital. We don't know how to, because something will come out and, it's only in theaters for 45 days and then is released on, whatever platform bought the rights to it. But they're not, doing advertising it the right way. And then all of a sudden you're just on, Apple TV and you're like, oh, this is on here. Why wasn't there an advertisement saying coming soon? Like the same way you would do on DVD in 10 days, like do that same thing and get the hype up. And if anything, if it's a feature, I understand because of contracts and it's, again, above my pay grade, but don't make it for free right away on the platform. If it's in theaters, make it a $5 rental. People are going to pay $5 to see something that was just in theaters 30 days ago, and that's a little bit of revenue. So for me, I think that the trends I'm seeing is they don't quite know how to advertise and do home entertainment the way we used to. I'm sure you're thinking more stylistic things as far as like trailers and stuff. But again, I read an article the other day that said that, people, just a regular viewer, was going, am I crazy, or trailers just really bad right now? And, it was just something I read and I was like, man, you're not right. You're wrong, because the problem is they're pushing things to go so fast. They're doing it for less money. Every movie has to either be a $400 million movie or it's not making enough to, we're missing the old days of just cool independent movies. Everything has to be such a big production. And I think it's a bummer, because I think we're missing out on incredible artists. We're missing out on incredible films because it has to be a Marvel movie or it's not worth it, and so there's no in between in the creative space right now. And so I hope we get back to that. I think we're in a transition. The studios, the way we do things is evolving and changing. And so I'm not, seeing a lot of things that I look at and I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. I feel like it's the opposite when I see stuff and I'm like, man, they just push that out quick because that's a terrible edit, And so I hope we get back to it.
Some of that came from COVID, like because there was so many like panicking stuff, and should they hold back or should they release or should they, and time just went on because it's just got a longer and longer period of being in
exactly.
the story. Yeah. Cool.
Yep. No, I think that's exactly it.
Yeah. So, so what's in the future for you? Like, you're in a new position. You need to build up a new
position
LA setup. Yeah.
Yeah, new position, new company. I'm really excited. It feels like, you bounce around a lot and then you find a place that it feels like home. And I feel like I'm home again, which is an exciting feeling, a place that, it was one of those nights where I just happened to be where I worked until 8 p.m. tonight. And I was okay with it because I believe in what we're building. I believe in what my place in it, being paid to be creative. And to me, that's a win. I have a lot of friends and people that, work jobs and they get paid their money and they clock in and they clock out. And I feel like for me, I get paid to be creative and create something for people. And to me, that's magic and that's a win. And that's, enough of a legacy to leave behind my son. So I'm just trying to embrace this moment and this time again and, be the best creative I can and at a point now where I hopefully get to pass it on to, some other generations and be a mentor to them and also give them a chance where maybe I wasn't given a chance and maybe they can, come in and a little bit sooner than I had to. So that's kind of where I'm at. This next chapter I hope is going to be kind of that next chapter that kind of goes to a tier above and allows me to, maybe, help manage, help let other editors, be the ones that create and kind of be a voice for them and see if I have what it takes to graduate up to the next level. So
great, man. So good to hear. Well, I just want to end this and say thank you very, very much for joining us. It means a lot. Of course. And if anyone want to follow your work, is there anything that can you recommend? I put it in the show notes, but you have my
website. My website, LinkedIn, but those are the two places that really I kind of highlight.
No TikTok or no Instagram or in.
I'm on Instagram. It's not very fun, but I'm not on TikTok. I got on it. That's just no, I know. My Instagram, especially now, it's really boring. It's just a little baby boy. And,
we'll go with the other stuff. Take care, CJ. So good.
Awesome, man.
All right.
Thanks. I really appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Bye.